keep giving second chances because your brain is not tracking the pattern. It is tracking the exception. And the moment you understand that, you stop calling it hope and you start seeing it as a predictable learning loop that you have accidentally trained into yourself. Quick thing before we go deeper. We are building toward 1,000 subscribers, and your subscription genuinely helps us reach more people who actually want substance instead of slogans. And if this hits a nerve, hit the like button too. It tells the algorithm this is worth showing to people who are quietly stuck in the same loop. Now let us frame this correctly, because most people frame it in a way that makes them feel noble and patient when it is actually making them manipulable. You have felt this. Someone does the same thing again. You get that drop in your stomach, and then your mind immediately starts constructing a story where this time could be different. Not because you are naive, because you are trying to reduce psychological pain as fast as possible. This is not just about relationships. It shows up with friends, co-workers, family, addictions, even your own habits. The deeper question is why your mind keeps treating repeated evidence like it is new information. And the research-backed answer is uncomfortable. Your brain is built to learn from intermittent rewards, and second chances are one of the most powerful intermittent reward schedules you can create in a social context. Here is what is actually happening. The first reason you keep giving second chances is that you are not making decisions based on the behavior. You are making decisions based on the apology. The apology is a reward stimulus. It is a social soothing signal. It temporarily lowers threat in your nervous system, and your brain, like any prediction machine, starts valuing whatever most quickly reduces that threat. Think about this for a second. If somebody hurts you and then they say the perfect words and your body relaxes, your brain learns a simple association. Forgiveness equals relief. Not resolution, relief. That is a huge difference. Relief is immediate. Resolution is long-term and requires evidence. Now here is where it gets interesting. Relief feels like wisdom. It feels like being the bigger person. But neurologically it functions like negative reinforcement. A behavior increases because it removes something unpleasant. The unpleasant thing is your anxiety, your grief, your rage, your cognitive dissonance. So you forgive, you feel better, and your brain goes, do that again next time. Notice the pattern here. You think you are giving them a second chance, but you are actually giving your nervous system a chance to calm down without having to take a hard action. And if you have ever wondered why you forgive, and then later you feel almost embarrassed, like you betrayed yourself, that is because the relief wore off and reality stayed. But there is a second layer that most people miss. You are not only reinforcing yourself, you are also reinforcing them. If the cycle is harm, apology, closeness, harm, apology, closeness, you have created a variable reward relationship. The closeness after the apology becomes more intense than normal closeness because it comes after threat. It is the contrast effect. The same reason warm water feels hotter after cold. This is one reason toxic relationships can feel more alive than stable ones. Your nervous system is being yanked between danger and safety, and that swing produces intensity. You interpret intensity as connection. That is the trap. Let me show you what I mean in real life. They ghost you, betray you, lie, lash out, or forget something important. Then comes the repair attempt, not just an apology, a gift, a long message, a sudden vulnerability story, maybe even tears. Your brain reads that as investment, as proof, as a signal of future change. But it is often just the cheapest behavior that buys the most access. And if you think that sounds cynical, stay with me, because the next part is not about them being evil. It is about how your brain estimates probability. You keep giving second chances because of a cognitive error called base rate neglect. Base rates are boring statistics, how often something happens in general. Your mind prefers vivid episodes over boring averages. So instead of asking, given what I have seen repeatedly, what is the base rate that this person changes, you ask, but what if this time is the time? And the reason that question feels so compelling is that your brain is addicted to the idea of an inflection point. Humans love turning points, the comeback, the redemption arc. We are narrative creatures. We do not just experience life, we storyboard it. And once someone is cast in your mind as capable of being better, every small improvement becomes a trailer for the movie you want to watch. So you do something subtle. No, you start counting signals, not outcomes. They went to therapy once. They admitted it. They said they are trying. They had a rough childhood. You collect these like tokens, but outcomes are the only thing that tells you the truth. Here is the mechanism behind this. The brain uses prediction errors to learn. When something unexpected happens, dopamine spikes, not because it feels good, but because it updates your model of reality. If someone is usually bad, and then they are suddenly good for a week, that creates a big prediction error. Your brain pays attention. It marks it as important. It starts thinking, maybe the model is wrong, maybe they are changing. But what if that week was not evidence of change, but part of the cycle? Then your dopamine system just got hijacked by inconsistency. You are not bonding to their character. You are bonding to the volatility. Now watch what happens when we apply this to you specifically. The more intelligent you are, the more dangerous this becomes, because you can build better stories. You can make a stronger case for why the exception matters. You can argue yourself into staying. That leads to the third reason, and this one is the one people almost never want to look at. You give second chances because leaving would force you to update your self-concept. It would force you to admit you misread someone, or you over-invested, or you ignored your own early signals. And that is not just disappointing, it threatens identity. If you think of yourself as perceptive, loyal, emotionally mature, not the type to give up, then leaving feels like becoming a different person. And your brain resists identity change harder than it resists pain. And that is why people stay in situations that clearly hurt them while saying, I just need clarity. They already have clarity. What they need is permission to become someone who makes a different kind of choice. There is a term that helps here: cognitive dissonance. When your actions and beliefs conflict, your mind must reduce the tension. If you stay with someone who keeps repeating the same behavior, you have two options. You can change your action, or you can change your interpretation. Most people change interpretation because it is cheaper. So you reinterpret. They are stressed. They are learning. They did not mean it. They love me in their own way. Notice how these are not explanations. They are dissonance reducers. They are mental sedatives. And there is a social layer too. Your community often rewards you for being tolerant, patient, or forgiving. There is status in being the person who sees the good in people, but that status can quietly turn into a cage. Because if you stop giving chances, you risk being seen as cold, selfish, dramatic, unforgiving. So you keep paying for peace with your own boundaries. But there is another layer here, and it is the part that connects everything. At the center of the second chance loop is a mistaken unit of measurement. You are measuring change by intention instead of by cost. When someone hurts you, what should matter is not how sorry they feel. It should matter what it costs them to not do it again. Because cost is what predicts behavior, not feelings, not words. Cost. If the person can repeat the same behavior while paying almost nothing, they will. Not because they are a monster. Because that is how brains work. all brains. We follow the path of least internal friction. If the consequence is manageable, the behavior stays in the repertoire. This is why the most manipulative people are not always strategic geniuses. Sometimes they just have a nervous system that cannot tolerate accountability, so they find the fastest way back to access. And if you make that fast, you train them. You become a predictable environment. Now flip everything I just said and listen carefully. The real reason second chances are so sticky is because they allow you to avoid grief. Grief is not only about death. Grief is what you feel when you let go of a future you were already living inside your head. And second chances keep that future alive. They are a grief delay tactic. If you fully accept the pattern, you have to mourn the person you thought they were. You have to mourn the relationship you were trying to build. You have to mourn your own time and hope. That hurts, so instead you negotiate with reality. You say, one more chance. But what you really mean is, one more dose of not having to grieve yet. And this is why you can be incredibly rational in every other area of your life and still do this. It is not an intelligence problem. It is an emotional economics problem. Second chances are emotional credit cards. You buy short-term comfort and you pay long-term interest. So what do you do with this without turning into a bitter person who trusts nobody? You need a different framework, not do they deserve a second chance? That question is a trap because it frames you as a judge and them as a defendant. The real question is, what pattern am I participating in and what am I reinforcing? Here is a model I use that is brutally clarifying. It is 3 filters: repetition, repair, and risk. Repetition is simple. Has the behavior happened more than once in the same category, not the same exact scenario, but the same category? Disrespect, dishonesty, avoidance, aggression, neglect. If it is repeating, you are not dealing with an accident. You are dealing with a strategy or a trait. Repair is not an apology. Repair is a structural change, something measurable, something inconvenient, something that reduces the probability of recurrence. If they lied, repair is transparency that costs them privacy. If they lashed out, repair is a plan that costs them pride, like taking a break, learning regulation skills, agreeing to consequences. If repair costs them nothing, it is not repair, it is theatre. And risk is about your downside. What is the price if it happens again? Not emotionally in abstract terms, specifically. Does it damage your mental health for days? Does it erode your self-respect? Does it isolate you from other relationships? Does it affect money, safety, reputation? The higher the risk, the fewer experiments you run. Now here is the payoff, the part that makes everything we said snap into place. Second chances are not a moral issue. They are a data policy. You are deciding what kind of evidence you accept and how many times you need to see it before you update your model of someone. That is it. And once you see it that way, you stop arguing about fairness, and you start acting like a scientist with standards. Scientists do not hate their hypothesis when it fails. They just stop protecting it. They let the data be real. So the practical move is not dramatic, it is quiet and precise. You stop granting chances based on words, and you start granting access based on cost-paid change. And you make the cost explicit. You say, if this happens again, I will do X. Not as a threat, as a boundary with a consequence. And then the hardest part, you follow through the first time it happens again. Because the first follow-through is the moment your nervous system learns, I do not need relief at the price of reality. If you do this, something strange happens. You start feeling cruel at first, that is withdrawal. You are withdrawing from the relief cycle. You are letting yourself feel the grief you kept postponing. But on the other side of that grief is a new sensation, calm that does not require denial. And one last thing, and because this will save you years, people who actually change do not require you to gamble your dignity to prove it. Real change is boring. It is consistent. It shows up when they are tired, when they are stressed, when nobody is watching. It does not need a dramatic apology arc. It is just different behavior repeated. So if you keep giving second chances, do not ask, what is wrong with me? Ask, what relief am I buying and what truth am I delaying? Because the moment you stop negotiating with the pattern stops negotiating with you. If this changed how you see someone in your life, I would genuinely like to hear what part hit in the comments. And next time you feel the pull to give one more chance, do not look at their words. Look at the cost they paid. That is the only apology your nervous system will respect.